Somebody's always trying to ice skate uphill.
Hey, I'm S.W.O.G, I'm a Celestial Rank and top 10 Blade main on console. I'm here to help you learn the ins and outs of Blade's kit. Most times when I'm looking at character guides for this game, I just get basic kit overviews. No tech, no nothing. Which, to be fair, many characters in this game don't have tech to show. Like if I had a gun to your head and asked you to show me some hella tech right now, you're not doing that, buddy. But every character can benefit from matchup guides, positioning guides, etc. So I decided to have a go at it myself with one of my favorite characters in Rivals. Many people believe that Blade is on the weaker side of DPS roster, and view parts of his kit as useless. I'm here to say that Blade isn't weak. He's a solid mid-tier to potential high tier that's hard to play, requiring you to change up your approach based on your enemies and your team's composition. Knowing where and when to switch it up is key to seeing success on this character. Real quick, before we get properly started, most gameplay footage will be from Season 5.5, but all information and use cases should cover you up to date with Season 6. Also have plans for other Blade and Marvel Rivals content, so if you'd like to see that, be sure to like and subscribe. There are two paths to playing Blade, the way of the sword and the way of the gun. As a Blade main, our goal is to become a dual wielder, a master of both weapons. Preferring one weapon over another is fine, but knowing when to swap to the other is essential. We'll be viewing Blade's kit with reference to these playstyles, so let's start with the sword itself. Getting into the stats of the weapon first. In your normal form, the sword does 26 damage per swing. It swings twice a second for a total DPS of 52 a second. It's pretty useless in this state, even a wand can out-damage you. However, enter his Bloodline Awakening mode, and you'll get a blood stack for each sword swing you hit. Get 5 hits in a row, and you trigger Whirlwind Slash, a little spinny move that Blade does. It does 64 damage and will give you a blood stack if all hits connect. Each blood stack gives you a 10% speed boost for your attacks, so at 10 blood stacks, your attack speed doubles, doing DPS at 104 a second. When you're awakened, you receive 25% less healing from allies, but any damage you will do will heal yourself. That any part is a point for later. For now, just know that when you're maxed out on stacks, you heal around 50 health per second. If you're familiar with this game's shenanigans, you know that amount of damage and healing for this weapon compared to other characters isn't a lot, so most at this point would write it off and pull out the gun. But it has its own unique strengths, one being ult charge farming. At full stacks, Blade gets around 10 ult charge per second, and while the gun can get similar numbers, it's more situational. You need to hit your headshots and be in the optimal range, but you're always realistic to do in the middle of a match. Blade's sword hitbox is gigantic, and hits multiple enemies too, so in situations where you're just waiting for support ults to end, this is a superior option. Secondly, and most obviously, it's a pretty good 1v1 tool, while being solid at dive to dive too. Deciding on which weapon to use to 1v1 someone is where your matchup knowledge gets checked. As a simple guideline, just know you typically win against all tanks and most melee heroes. If you're a high damage poke hero, then you're better off shooting, or engaging with the sword if you have healers pocketing you. Saving your block for cooldowns that do big burst damage is a lifesaver in most duels. A neat thing to know during this situation is that when you have Bloodline Awakening up, you move a bit faster. You can use the speed to circle around your enemies to trip out their aim, even in some jumps in there for some additional jigging. For the anti-dive, just dashing back and swinging on the enemy is usually enough to get them off your supports. Once you get them low enough, you want to interrupt any movement ability with the gun version of the dash, as well as cancelling it out. In Season 5.5, this usually applies to anti-heal to the target as well, but Season 6 made the sword version apply to anti-heal instead, while the gun gets a slow effect. So now you've got to decide which one you want to use depending on the health of the target and how far away your team is. For the final side, it's Blade's greatest frontlining tool. The sword being a melee attack means to go through most tank shields like Strange and Mags. While getting dashes in and on enemy DPS and healers is the goal, if you can't get a good angle, forcing a cooldown off their tanks is pretty good. Heck, just attacking them to make them retreat and give them space is also worthwhile. This is even more true with the new sword dash buff applying anti-heal. Before you had to choose between anti-heal or getting your blood stacks up, and you would normally choose blood stacks since the anti-heal portion of the move could be blocked by shields. Now you don't have to make that trade-off since it's 2-in-1, enabling you to get max stack for DPS and having to pressure anti-heal to force them back up. However, tight chokes and an obscene amount of poke damage can make getting in and hacking away a bit tricky, so I can give you all the core thesis on Blade's Blade. Let's put it away for now and talk about his Hunter Shotgun. We've been justifying why to use a sword over the gun so far. So what makes the gun so strong? Well, the 2 top 350 heroes.
Double KO!
That's it.
You never stood a chance.
Okay, well not literally, but it's a pretty big reason. Shotgun works by shooting a 45 damage projectile, and when reaching 8 meters, breaks into 11 pellets. You know that it breaks into pellets by the sound of the gunshot ringing out. Each pellet does 8 damage, so if all shots connect, it does 88 on the body and 176 to the head. Comparing it to Bucky's pistol, that one shoots out a 75 damage projectile that does 150 on headshot. That means it takes 3 headshots to take out a 350 hero. So this means that Blades has a better gun, right? Well, only when we view them in a vacuum. Isolate from the context of their kits.
Got one.
Bucky has tools to pin down or bring enemies to him. That when coupled with his overshields make his gun suited to frontlining. Shooting enemies just past their tanks or displacing their own frontliners to confirm kills. Blade lacks those crowd control tools, so utilize the shotgun in the same way. Blade shotgun being, well, a shotgun, means that the random spread will stop you from getting max damage every time too. I'd recommend changing the default crosshair since it's not accurate for the ranges you actually want to hit it at. You can look up custom crosshairs for it, but I just turn off the animated crosshair option to make it smaller. So how do we use Blade shotgun in the context of his kit? Let's review what he has. A damage reduction block to help him escape, a dash for 2 charges for mobility, and an alternative fire mode that gives him a speed boost. Think about it? That's pretty similar to Psylocke's kit, where she has spread weapon for a primary, 2 dashes for engaging and disengaging, and invisibility to help us escape. Imagine if Psylocke had Bucky's pistol kill people when she's diving. That'd be crazy. The best way to use the gun is to play like a Psylocke. Take the off angle to attack the backline. The key is to time your flank around the same time your team is engaging with the enemy on main. The area that all the damage, and most importantly, all the attention is being funneled into. Attacking from the side as the enemy is focused on what's in front of them forces them to make a decision. Should they deal with you and turn their back to your team that is shooting them? Or should they ignore you, allowing you to get free ult charge and potentially pick off their supports? Just off-laning alone can be enough to get value by putting pressure on them to make a mistake, which is good. It's like I need to save my life. But if you can, then you can pick up some easier kills or achieve even more valuable to your team. If one of the enemies does decide to go over to deal with you, then it's a great opportunity to use one of Blade's 1v1 tools to counter them for trying. If 2 or more pull up, you can use your dashes and block to escape back to your team, which can also be a win because you turn the fight on point from a 6v6 to a 5v4 for a couple of seconds, which can allow your teammates to clean up. Knowing when and how to off-angle and take flanks on Blade is the best way to get the most out of this character. So why wouldn't you do it all the time then? Couple problems. First being that off-angling usually makes your healers unable to see you. Blade has pretty good self-survivability, but that's what the help healers adding on top of that. Second being that his escape options aren't always reliable. Like Solid Dash would pierce through enemies, Blade's dash stops his movement on contact. So trying to dash up and over someone will usually have them bump them on the head and die horribly. Third, long-range poke characters like Hela, Hawkeye, and more can safely challenge you on your off-angle, and then quickly re-engage into the main team fight after they force you back away. And since you're likely cut off from your healer's line of sight, you're not going to have a good time challenging them back.
Welcome to hell, night creature.
Hot.
With both facets of Blade's weapons explained, the gear should be turning in your head at this point. When the choke is too loaded with damage and the enemies aren't pressured, use the shotgun and take an off-angle to get them to start thinking. When your off-angles are too contested and the backline is too protected, use the sword and force your tanks and their front line to back up so your team can take space. But what happens when both are happening at the same time? You might want to consider swapping at that point. While you can hope your tanks and DPS lock in so you can do your job, that's not something you can really control. Don't take it personally or anything. The game's nature will sometimes just have comps that will completely shut down characters. Great players recognize this and change up accordingly. Personally, I have Mr. Fantastic in my character roster to deal with divers that are too much to Blade to handle alone. Sometimes a good swap to your composition can be more valuable than staying on your best character. Okay, with both primaries out of the way, hopefully each of these segments should be notably shorter. Scarlet Shroud is Blade's block that reduces damage taken by 80%. It only blocks damage from the front and you're briefly CC immune for half a second when you activate it. It has a gauge mechanic and you can hold it up for 3 seconds if the gauge is full. Once the gauge is empty or you're released to move early, it goes on a 3-second cooldown and takes 6 seconds for the gauge to go back up to full. When you're brawling with the sword, this is the move that keeps you up. Blade has an effective health of 1,750 when blocking. That's more health than Monster Hulk and every other tank in the game. If you see someone complaining about Blade's survivability, poor block usage is probably why. When swinging away, this is your most important cooldown to keep track of. Since the sword hitbox is so generous, you don't have to worry much about if you're hearing your swings. You should instead be bearing down at your health bar. If it goes to half, use block and retreat while facing the enemy. You're able to toggle your awakening off without cancelling the block, so be sure to do that so your healers can top you off faster. If backpedaling with the block isn't enough to retreat, using a dash to get to safety is a good idea. Your best bet is to dash behind your team, but a nearby health pack is fine too. The block shortens the dash cooldown by a second for every 20 damage you take with it, refreshing it fully if you block 200, so you should have an extra dash about every time you block. After that, wait for the cooldown to return and then re-engage. I usually wait until the gauge is about full so I don't throw off my tempo by the block timer being shorter. You can also take damage on purpose to refill your dashes faster, by using a tight choke to get through, or walking straight at an enemy shooting at you to close the distance. Though slashing straight at them afterwards is a great idea, as that leads to some easy headshots. It is really important to mention that you can animation cancel nearly every move in Blade's kit into the block, except Whirlwind Slash and Bow Dash moves. So when you suspect a big style move to come your way, hold off on attacking for a second or you will get got. In addition, the fact that the CC immune time is so short makes diving in with the sword a bad move most times, as Luna, Mantis, Invis, and Jet 2 I guess, can and will push and stun you, making you an easy pick. Even if you correctly predict their timing, it's likely that enemy DPS will turn around by then and shoot you in the back while you're dealing with the supports. So yeah, not really advised. But those are all personal use cases. With the block, we effectively have a tank's health pool for 3 seconds, although one that can attack is just a damage sponge, so I guess we're closer to a monstral. Regardless, the point is that we can treat our health bar not like it's just ours. It's theirs too, our team's. See your tanks getting low? Get in front of them and take some of that damage. See your supports getting low? Get in there and eat some of those hits. See if Phoenix or Mag about to hit a game-winning ult on your team? You already know the vibes, get in there! If you live to tell, you most likely have a dash refresh to help you get back to safety. Do those hero plays to squeeze as much value as you can out of this move. Because of the 80% damage reduction, it's usually a good idea, and you'll potentially get a sick clip out of it too. We brought up the dash a few times throughout this video, so let's look what it actually does. It goes 15 meters and does 20 damage on contact, and has 2 different follow-ups depending on the weapon you're holding. If you have the sword out, then Blade does an animation similar to Whirlwind Slash that hits 4 times and does 32 damage if you land all hits. Getting all hits will apply a 32% anti-heal to all enemies hits for 3 seconds. It'll also grant you 5 blood stacks if you got your awakening active. If you have the shotgun out, then Blade takes a shot for 70 damage and applies a slow that lasts for 1.5 seconds. The sword version is your primary way to engage for a brawl. Just swinging normally to build your blood stacks is way too slow, so always dash to get your blood stacks up fast unless there's like a tank standing right in front of you. In the previous patch, this is all the sword dash was good for, as a gap closure slash engagement tool. You only increase your DPS if you're at max stacks, since that will do most at 80 damage, and you would actually heal less because of that. If you wanted to increase your lethality, you had to swap to your gun, and heal with the gun dash, that could be blocked by the way, animation cancel into the quick melee, and wait have a second for the Bloodline Awakening to come out of cooldown. With the anti-heal banning on the sword dash now, Blade can more efficiently confirm kills on Awakening, while also having less trouble getting blocked due to it counting as a melee hit. Got an extra dash and your target's half health? Let's dash with the sword to secure the KO. We mentioned this earlier, but the gun dash is a great anti-dive tool due to the slow and the knockback. But this is not only limited to people diving your backline. If you see DPS or tanks taking too much heat, dash at the enemy to get them off of them. If you end up in front of your teammate afterwards, you apply the tips for the block here, and face tank for them a bit before retrieving to safety. A neat trick that I learned from Avenue, the rank 1 Blade, is that if you headshot someone and do a gun dash animation cancel, you can pick off the support like your Black Panther. If they spot you before you can do the combo, switch to the sword version instead to try to kill through any pocket you may receive. These changes are so good, I don't understand how anyone say these are nerfs. We covered most of Bloodline Awakening in the Ancestral Sword portion of the guide. Sword hits grant blood stacks increase attack speed, attack grant lifesteal, blades move slightly faster during Awakening, yada yada yada. What's new? Well, occasionally you find yourself in a position where you're blocking dash on cooldown, but you aren't behind cover yet. Turning on Awakening during these moments can help you get to cover ever so slightly faster so you don't die. Overshot since you're likely to die if you find yourself in this position in the first place. If you do die, using speed boost from Awakening can help you get back to the team fight sooner as well. Those are nice to know, but what I really want to talk about is the gun healing tech. Remember earlier when I said that any damage that Blade does will give him health back? Well, if you shoot the shotgun and get the pellet hit after you enter Awakening, you get healing from a shot. The range you need to be away from the enemy to pull this off is around 20 meters. When Awakening, you are locked to using the sword, and swapping to your gun will make you automatically exit mode. Pressing Awakening again while already in it will take you out of it and auto-swap you to your gun. However, this won't work for chaining gun heals, as there's a buffer period when activating Awakening where you can't turn it off, so you don't accidentally turn it off when you're trying to mash it turn it on. So the way you want to chain gun heals is to fire your gun, activate Awakening, and then you press your swap button back to switch back. It nets you around 30 HP, which can be really helpful when you're oscillated on an off angle to aid in your retreat or when dueling an enemy in a 1v1. So if you're confident in your shots, it's a neat tech to have in your back pocket. Unfortunately, I'm not confident at all, so I don't have many real game examples to show you. Sorry. Let's see, anything else? Oh, when you're stunned, you're still able to toggle your Awakening off to let your sports heal you better. However, it won't stop your weapon, so be sure to swap to the gun manually after it's done if you plan on shooting the enemies. The ultimate. The strongest move in any character's kit. Most of the time. This time is not most times. Blade's ult is pretty underwhelming compared to other DPS ults, but it does have its strengths. Blade ult is a chargeable dash that deals 100 damage, then after a small pause, use an AoE attack that lasts for 2 seconds and do 225 damage per second. Uncharged goes for 10 meters, while fully charged goes for 24 meters. Also applies 20% anti-heal to anyone who gets hit by the ult for 4 seconds. And the stats with this anti-heal from the sword dash mean that you can anti-heal someone for 52%. Previous patch you could go as high as 60%, but 52 is still pretty good. The real problem with this ult is that it's pretty much a straight line that you can walk to the side of to escape. Coupled with the fact that the AoE attack afterward is slightly delayed after initial slash, it still has trouble getting kills. However, that doesn't make it unusual. Just means we have to think about our approach in using it. One way is to ult in a tight corridor where it's hard for the enemy just to walk to the side. The right or left of payload, check choke into like matchup like Pintar and Dracula, or situation where the enemy is forced to walk backwards are great points to use it. Timing when an enemy support ult is about to end is also a good use case. These are situational, however, and still won't guarantee a kill. Another way is to use it as a low effort execute on targets that are low. Might feel like a waste using an ult to kill someone who's already half, but oftentimes the kill can escape you by the enemy being healed at the last second. Don't be afraid to use the ult to secure those first picks. Blade's ult cost is pretty low, so you should get it back by the next team fight. Plus, soloing ulting someone's pretty funny, for us at least. But even that method is not reliable, so oftentimes the best way to use the Blade ult is to initiate a team fight. The goal of using this method is not to get a kill, but to hopefully force a support ult and to enable everyone on your team to get picks by anti-healing everyone. The simplest way to do this is to sword dash up to the tank and then fully charge an ult. Try to aim for the healers in the back, getting as many people in your ult on your way there. Afterwards, pepper them with gunshots or sword. If they don't fall after a couple of seconds, go back and regroup with your team. However, when you sword dash someone and ult in your face, you can't explode from damage due to you just sitting there charging. That's why I like implementing the method I learned from Team Captain of dashing in the air and dropping down with the ult. You missed out on applying a 52% anti-heal to a target though, so pick your poison type of deal. Some additional applications of the ult is that it's essentially a third dash, so you can use it to reach the objective and stall time for something like a strange portal. You can toggle awakening during the charge of the ult and during the animation, so be sure to activate it so you get some healing from the ult's damage, if it does actually end up damaging anyone.
And I can't live like this. I have to kill myself.
Doesn't it make more sense to kill her?
Say that again?
Do I really have to talk about team-ups? I mean, sure, fine, whatever. So, Blade currently has a team-up with Moon Knight that gives Blade a dash that shoots 4 ranged projectiles that bounce up to 3 times. You can treat it as a third dash to catch up to enemies and finish them off with the projectiles. Otherwise, you can just use it to throw it towards the tanks to farm ult. It is around like 10% charge, so it's alright. The previous team-up that Blade had was with C&D. Moon Knight was also in this one, funny enough, where C&D gave them a bubble that heals them over time and makes them invisible. It was pretty much just an all-in-demand health pack that you could use to help escape when off-angling or increase your healing when attacking with the sword. Personally, I prefer the C&D team-up as it's generally more useful than MKs. Plus, you're more likely to have a C&D on your team than an NK, with C&D and Blade being a better pairing than NK and Blade on top of that.
Tomorrow's mine.
Here we are at the end. Now you should have a deeper understanding of how to play Blade and use his kit. Before you go off to terrorize your rank, let's talk about how this character is seen by others. He's been viewed as barely mid-tier, with potential mana rivals, and even the worst DPS in the game for a bit. But Blade mains are a dedicated bunch. When Blade was viewed as the worst DPS in the game, Team Captain believed.
I think Blade is low S, and people are sleeping on this character a lot this season. Super good character, really good. No one's picking him a lot though, for some reason. Yeah, I think he's better than Psylocke, honestly.
When Blade was viewed as a nothing burger mid-tier, Avenue believed.
Chat, Blade? Guys! Blade went from F tier to D tier, let's go!
And everyone thought that Season 6 patch actually nerfed Blade. KPX Chris?
3 reasons why the Blade buffs are really strong in Season 6. Thank you guys and hope you enjoyed the video.
Well, he didn't believe, but I do. I hope you do too. So when you're facing down those server admins and ranks, just remember what you learned, and show them all what our Daywalker can do.